The first signal came without warning. A pulse of light, sharper than any star's flare, streaked across the void toward Earth's defense fleet. Command centers erupted in chaos, alarms screaming over the hum of engines and blinking consoles. The Galactic Empire, an ancient, ruthless power that had subdued countless civilizations across the galaxy, was approaching, and this time, they had set their sights on humanity. No one knew exactly why Earth had drawn their attention, but one thing was clear: they were coming not just to test us, but to crush us. From the command bridge of the flagship, the fleet's leaders watched as the Empire's massive ships emerged from hyperspace. Colossal, blackened vessels hung in space like predators circling a newborn world. Every sensor screamed impossible numbers: firepower, speed, defenses beyond comprehension. And yet, humanity had something the Empire had forgotten: resilience, ingenuity, and a stubborn refusal to yield. Among the crew, whispers spread about old myths of Earth's might, stories passed down about humans surviving against all odds, even when everything seemed lost. Stories the Empire had dismissed as superstition, tales meant to entertain, not warn. The fleet's captain, eyes fixed on the shimmering outline of enemy ships, felt the weight of history pressing down. Years of training, countless simulations, every strategy they had learned, all seemed small against the vastness of what approached. Yet, deep in the gut, there was a flicker of hope, a human instinct that told them they had a chance. Somewhere in the legends, in the myths of courage and defiance, lay a lesson the Empire had never truly understood. That lesson would soon make itself known, and the cost of underestimating humans was about to become painfully clear. On Earth, civilians watched the skies, their communications buzzing with anxious speculation. Scientists and engineers worked feverishly to ready every possible defense, aware that conventional weapons might not be enough. And yet, there was a strange, almost electric excitement among some, an awareness that what was coming might push humanity beyond its limits, might demand heroism the galaxy had never expected from us. Even as panic spread, there was a quiet belief that humans had survived the impossible before, and we could do it again. As the first Empire ship entered firing range, a strange silence fell across the fleet. It wasn't fear. It was anticipation, like the moment before a storm breaks, when the world holds its breath. Every human, from the youngest pilot to the oldest engineer, knew this confrontation would change everything. And somewhere, deep in the legends that had been dismissed for centuries, the Empire was about to learn why myths are feared best. But the first volley had barely begun. And in that instant, as lasers lit the void and shields strained under the force, the fleet realized they were facing not just a technological force, but a strategy born of arrogance, and they weren't sure the Empire remembered the one rule humans had never forgotten. The battle was just beginning, and what happened next would determine the fate of everyone who looked up at the stars and dared to hope. The question now hung in the void. Could humanity survive the Empire's might, or had we finally reached the edge of the myth that had always protected us? The void of space seemed to thrum with quiet menace as the fleet adjusted its formations. Every human aboard the ships could feel it, the weight of something larger than any single star system, a presence that carried centuries of conquest. The Galactic Empire wasn't just a military force, it was a machine built on discipline, fear, and calculation. Yet despite their overwhelming size and firepower, there was a subtle crack in their armor, a lack of understanding of the unpredictable, stubborn spirit of humanity. On the bridge of one of the Earth's cruisers, the communications officer replayed reports of the Empire's previous conquests. Systems annihilated in days, civilizations erased without warning. Still, there were stories of humans who had stood against impossible odds, tales of ingenuity, of defiance, of last-minute reversals that left entire fleets stunned. Some of these were dismissed as folklore, but for the officers now watching the approaching armada, they were reminders that humans had a kind of resourcefulness no machine could predict. Below deck, engineers and scientists worked feverishly, adjusting energy conduits, recalibrating weapons, and reinforcing shields. Every system had been pushed to its limits, and every crew member knew failure was not an option. Yet amid the chaos, there was an almost electric focus, a sense that humanity's survival depended not just on technology, but on instinct, creativity, and courage. Every decision carried weight, every second mattered, and the people in those halls understood something the Empire could not: that survival often comes from what cannot be measured. Meanwhile, the Empire's fleet continued its slow, methodical advance, massive cannons beginning to hum with anticipation. Sensors scanned Earth's ships, marking every vessel, every weapon system. They had calculated probabilities, run simulations, predicted responses. And yet, somewhere deep in the archives of the Empire, warnings had been ignored, warnings about humans. Myths that spoke of an unyielding species, capable of extraordinary feats when cornered. The Empire's arrogance had always been its strength, but it was about to become its blind spot. On Earth, civilians listened to the news feeds, their fear mingling with fascination. Families gathered around screens, scientists held urgent conferences, and young cadets imagined the battles they had trained for but never thought they would face. Across the globe, people shared stories of courage and ingenuity, passing down old legends that reminded them of what humanity was capable of. These weren't just tales, they were a lifeline, a reminder that even against the might of a galactic empire, humans could adapt, improvise, and fight back. The first clash of sensors and shields sent shudders through the fleet. A single Empire vessel unleashed its weapons, and Earth's defenses barely held. Sparks danced along the hull, alarms shrieked, and every officer felt the sharp taste of adrenaline. In that moment, it became clear that the Empire had underestimated more than just a fleet. They had underestimated the unpredictability of humans, the depth of human courage, and the cleverness that often thrived in desperation. But as the first shots were exchanged, a deeper mystery unfolded. Strange readings appeared on sensors, patterns that didn't match any known technology. Something was stirring in the dark spaces between the ships, something the Empire had not anticipated, and somewhere in that silence, the humans realized that survival might depend not on brute strength, but on understanding the unknown, and that some myths were feared for a reason. The battle had begun, but the full story of Earth's defiance, and the secret edge humans might hold over the Empire, was far from clear. One question burned through every mind on the fleet. What was waiting in the shadows of space, and could humanity survive long enough to see it? The first shots had barely faded into the emptiness of space when the full weight of the Galactic Empire's assault hit. Explosions rippled along the outer hulls of Earth's ships, shaking corridors and rattling equipment. Crews scrambled, moving with a precision honed through years of training, but the sheer size of the Empire's fleet made even the most coordinated defense seem like a drop against a tidal wave. Every human on board felt the pressure not just of the enemy, but of history, expectation, and the fragile hope that survival was still possible. On one cruiser, the tactical officer traced the patterns of incoming fire. The Empire's strikes were calculated, relentless, and brutal, but there were gaps, tiny, almost imperceptible openings in their formations. The officer realized that these were not mistakes, they were assumptions. The Empire expected humans to respond in predictable ways, but humans were not predictable. They adapted, they improvised, and they could turn desperation into strategy. Orders were shouted, maneuvers changed mid-course, and the fleet began to exploit the subtle flaws in the enemy's approach. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the flagship, engineers worked in cramped, glowing halls, rerouting power to shields, weapons, and engines simultaneously. Each decision carried immediate consequences. One wrong calculation could mean a breach, a lost ship, 100 lives sacrificed in an instant. But the engineers were not just following protocol, they were inventing solutions on the fly, repurposing old systems, and testing theories that had never been tried in real combat. Somewhere deep in the chaos there was a spark of humanity's unique strength, the ability to think, to feel, and to act when the odds seemed insurmountable. Far above, in orbit around Earth, satellites relayed information that added another layer to the unfolding battle. Strange readings continued to appear in areas the Empire assumed were empty space. Something moved with subtle precision, almost as if it were waiting for the right moment. Rumors among the fleet whispered of old myths coming to life, legends of human ingenuity and courage that had always been dismissed as stories. For the first time, the Empire may have realized that what they thought was myth might carry real danger. Back on Earth, civilians watched the unfolding conflict, their panic tempered by offers. Schools, research centers, and communication hubs became hotbeds of emergency strategy. People who had never touched a weapon or commanded a ship were suddenly part of a larger plan, contributing in ways that surprised even themselves. Humanity's resilience wasn't just in the fleet, it was everywhere, from the control rooms to the streets, from engineers to ordinary citizens ready to face the unknown. Even as the first skirmishes raged, new challenges emerged. Small reconnaissance ships reported strange anomalies near the edges of battle and energy spikes that did not match any known Empire technology. Some suggested it might be automated defense systems from an earlier human settlement. Others feared a weapon beyond comprehension. The tension grew with every scan, every report. The fleet realized that the Empire had not come to Earth simply to fight. They had awakened something long dormant, something that could shift the course of the conflict in unexpected ways. The battle lines were drawn, yet no one knew what would come next. The Empire pressed forward with unyielding confidence, but Earth's fleet, fueled by resourcefulness, courage, and the instinct to survive, refused to yield. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, forces neither side fully understood were preparing to reveal themselves. The question hung like a pulse across every human mind. Could the fleet survive long enough to uncover the truth? Or was this only the beginning of a reckoning far beyond anyone's imagination? The void of space had turned into a chaotic web of fire and light. Every sensor aboard Earth's fleet screamed alert, shields faltering, engines overheating, hull breaches forming faster than they could be repaired. The Galactic Empire's fleet pressed relentlessly, their massive ships moving with precision and merciless force. On every bridge, every command center, every control station, humans fought with every ounce of ingenuity and courage they possessed. The fight was no longer just about survival, it was a test of who could think faster, adapt smarter, and endure longer. In the midst of the chaos, small squads of fighter ships darted through gaps in the enemy's formation, exploiting weaknesses only a human mind could spot. Pilots communicated in rapid bursts, calling out maneuvers and counterattacks, each decision split-second yet life-saving. Some of the smaller Empire vessels faltered under unexpected tactics, their calculations unable to predict the bold, unpredictable nature of humans. Stories of Earth's legends, tales of courage, cleverness, and resistance resonated through the fleet. Humans were proving the myths true, but the danger was far from over. Below deck, engineers worked tirelessly, rerouting power to weapons and shields while repairing critical systems under the constant threat of failure. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and every hand moved with precision born from training and desperation. One misstep could mean the loss of a ship, or worse, the lives of those aboard. Yet even in the face of overwhelming pressure, humans found creative solutions no algorithm could predict. A clever modification here, a calculated risk there, and suddenly a failing shield held, or a weapon struck with deadly accuracy. Every small victory kept hope alive, even as the Empire's firepower threatened to crush it. In orbit, the anomalies in space grew stronger, mysterious bursts of energy that danced beyond sensors, defying explanation. The fleet's analysts tracked them, trying to understand what the readings meant. But the patterns were erratic, almost intelligent. Whispers spread that these anomalies were part of the myths themselves, remnants of human history or unknown forces that had always existed, lying dormant until now. Some feared them, some believed they might be humanity's hidden advantage. Either way, they added another layer of tension, a reminder that the fight was not simply between fleets, but against forces the Empire had never encountered. Meanwhile, the Empire's admirals grew frustrated. Their strategies, built on centuries of conquest, faltered against a species they considered primitive. Human defiance was unpredictable, relentless, and terrifying. Reports of losses and anomalies came in faster than they could adjust, shaking even the most confident leaders. They had underestimated humans before, but this time it was proving fatal to their assumptions. The battle reached a fevered pitch. Explosions lit the void like artificial suns, fighter squadrons wove through torrents of fire, and massive cruisers strained under the pressure of simultaneous attacks. Every person aboard Earth's fleet felt the tension in their bones, every heart beating in sync with the pulse of the conflict. The myths, once dismissed as mere stories, seemed to pulse with life, guiding human courage in ways the Empire could not anticipate. And then, as the fleet prepared for another coordinated strike, a massive, unexplained energy surge rippled through space. Shields flickered, weapons misfired, and a strange silence followed, leaving both sides frozen in disbelief. Something was coming, something bigger, something that could change the entire battle in an instant. The humans waited, hearts racing, knowing the climax was at hand, yet none could guess what force was about to strike. Every mind aboard the fleet knew the same terrifying truth. This was the moment where myths met reality, and the outcome could decide not just the battle, but the fate of humanity itself. The silence that followed the energy surge was deafening. For a moment, both fleets seemed to hesitate, as if the void itself had grown heavy with anticipation. Then sensors lit up with something impossible. The energy readings weren't random, they were forming patterns, shapes, almost like a map. The humans exchanged stunned looks, realizing that whatever was happening wasn't just an anomaly, it was a signal, a deliberate force reacting to the battle. No one could tell who or what was sending it, but the implications were immediate. The fight was no longer just between humans and the Galactic Empire. Something else was in play. On the flagship, the captain barked orders to adjust formations, but the anomaly kept shifting. It pulsed with a strange rhythm, disrupting communications and causing weapons to misfire. Some ships suddenly found themselves surrounded by pockets of warped energy, where engines sputtered and gravity fields fluctuated. Pilots had to rely on instinct, reacting to conditions that no training had prepared them for. The legends of human adaptability were being tested in real time, and every decision could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. Meanwhile, the Empire's admirals grew increasingly desperate. Their ships, designed to crush entire systems, faltered under conditions they could neither calculate nor predict. Reports of failures, misfires, and sudden malfunctions filled their command consoles. Confidence turned to frustration, and frustration to panic. They had underestimated human ingenuity once before, but now they faced forces that even they did not understand. Their arrogance had always been their greatest weapon, and now it threatened to become their undoing. On Earth, scientists monitored the patterns, piecing together what little they could from the signals. Some speculated it might be a hidden human defense, an ancient weapon buried in the myths they had long dismissed. Others feared it was something far more alien, an intelligence lying dormant in the solar system, now awakened by the conflict. Either way, the fleet realized that survival would require more than tactics, it would require understanding, intuition, and courage at levels no simulation could teach. In the midst of the chaos, a secondary threat emerged. Smaller Empire strike teams, previously held in reserve, suddenly accelerated toward the fleet's flanks, exploiting gaps created by the energy anomalies. They moved with terrifying precision, attacking in coordinated bursts that tested human reflexes and teamwork. Fighter pilots scrambled to intercept, while cruisers rerouted shields to protect vulnerable points. Every move felt like walking a razor's edge, where a single miscalculation could mean catastrophic loss. At the same time, reports of strange interference in sensor arrays hinted at yet another layer of danger. Ships reported glimpses of shadows in the void, massive shapes that vanished before confirmation. No one could tell whether they were natural phenomena, remnants of ancient technology, or something entirely new, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The myths that had always guided human imagination suddenly felt real, their warnings and lessons alive in ways no one could have predicted. As the fleet adjusted, adrenaline surged through every human aboard. Every eye was on the void, every hand ready for action. The Empire had thought it was crushing Earth with sheer force, but now the humans faced a battle that defied expectation, logic, and strategy. Something had changed the rules, and the climax of the conflict was inching closer. The pulse of the unknown anomaly continued to grow, stretching across the battlefield, disrupting the Empire's formations, and challenging human resilience at every turn. The question that burned in every mind was the same. Could humanity survive the chaos, uncover the truth behind the energy surge, and confront an enemy whose power might now be rivaled by forces even they had not imagined? The energy surge that had haunted the fleet for so long suddenly exploded outward, a blinding wave of light and force that shook every ship to its core. Humans gripped consoles, braced for impact, but instead of destruction, the wave revealed the truth. The anomaly was not a weapon. It was a sentient intelligence, a guardian of the stars, long dormant and stirred by the Empire's aggression. Massive in scale, its form shimmered like liquid light, flowing and adapting to the chaos around it. Humans and Empire alike stared, realizing that the myths whispered for centuries had been warnings, not stories tales of a force no conqueror had ever faced and survived. The Empire reacted first, their ships firing blindly, trying to assert control over something beyond comprehension. But the Guardian moved faster than their calculations, neutralizing weapons with invisible barriers and bending space around its presence. Explosions that should have obliterated cruisers fizzled harmlessly into rippling energy fields. Panic spread among the admirals. Every tactic they had relied on failed in seconds. The Empire's arrogance had met its equal not in humans, but in the cosmos itself. Amid the awe and terror, humans acted with the ingenuity that had defined them from the beginning. Pilots wove through the Guardian's energy fields, coordinating attacks not on the creature itself, but on disabling the Empire's own support systems. Engineers rerouted power to reinforce shields at key moments, exploiting the disruption caused by the Guardian. Humanity's fleet did not try to control the unknown. They adapted to it, learned its rhythm, and found a way to turn its presence into an advantage. Every move was a delicate dance of instinct and intellect, a testament to the stories of resilience the Empire had dismissed for centuries. The turning point came when the Guardian seemed to recognize the humans' intentions. Its energy pulsed in harmony with the fleet, amplifying their maneuvers, protecting them from the Empire's most lethal strikes. The humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving, using the anomaly's power to push the Empire back. Cruiser after cruiser faltered under the combined might of human strategy and the Guardian's interference. The tide of battle shifted in ways no one had predicted, a living demonstration of why myths are feared best. Just when victory seemed near, the final twist struck. A hidden fleet, long concealed beyond the edge of known space, emerged behind the human line, not Empire ships, but something entirely different. They moved with a precision and speed that mirrored the Guardian, their intent unreadable. Messages came through in fragmented transmissions, ancient human dialects mixed with technology no one recognized. They were descendants of an early Earth expedition, lost to history, now awakened by the same Guardian that had turned the battle. Their arrival promised aid, but also new uncertainty. Could humanity coordinate with them in time, or would miscommunication spark disaster? The Empire reeled, disoriented by both the Guardian and the sudden emergence of an unexpected human faction. Commanders shouted, pilots dodged, and the battlefield erupted in another wave of chaos, one that even the most seasoned humans had never imagined. The final outcome hung in the balance, but the lesson was undeniable. No matter how advanced or arrogant, no force could outmatch the combination of human courage, ingenuity, and the forgotten myths that had always protected them. As the light of the Guardian shimmered across the fleet, and the hidden humans aligned with the main forces, every eye turned toward the unknown horizon, knowing the story was far from over. Humanity had survived, but the universe had just reminded them that survival always came with a price, and that legends often held truths even the bravest had yet to comprehend. The battle's roar slowly faded, leaving a tense quiet across the void. The Empire's fleet, battered and disoriented by the Guardian's intervention and the unexpected arrival of the hidden human faction, began to retreat, their once imposing formations fractured and broken. Human ships floated among the wreckage, some smoking, some heavily scarred, yet alive. Every crew member felt the weight of what had just happened, a victory born not from overwhelming power, but from courage, adaptability, and the ingenuity that had defined humans for millennia. On the flagship, the captain allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. Every decision, every improvisation, every risk had been crucial, The myths of human resilience had proven true, and the legends whispered through generations had guided them, even if only in spirit. Engineers, pilots, and officers moved with cautious relief, checking systems, tending to the wounded, and quietly marveling at what they had survived. Humans had faced an enemy they had been told was unbeatable, and yet they endured. On the surface of Earth, people watched the remaining ships return, awe and relief mingling in every eye. Humanity had faced the vastness of the galaxy and not only survived, but had earned a place in its story. Civilians and soldiers alike realized that the fight had not just been about defense, it had been a test of what humans could accomplish. When pushed to the edge, inventiveness, courage, and unity had proven stronger than brute force. And that lesson resonated across every communication channel, every city, every settlement. The Guardian, the mysterious intelligence that had emerged from the energy anomaly, lingered for a moment longer, its shimmering form surveying the fleet before receding into the depths of space. It had been a protector, a test, and perhaps even a reminder that the universe held forces humans were only beginning to understand. Its presence left a profound sense of awe, a reminder that myths exist for a reason, and that sometimes the most powerful allies are those the eye cannot see. Meanwhile, the hidden human fleet, descendants of lost explorers, coordinated with Earth's forces, their advanced technology and knowledge merging with the ingenuity of modern humanity. Together they began assessing the damage, repairing ships, and establishing a plan for future defenses. Their arrival answered lingering questions about Earth's past and hinted at a broader story, one in which humans were not just survivors but participants in a larger cosmic narrative. The reunion felt like a bridge between forgotten history and the present, reminding everyone that humanity's potential had always been greater than imagined. Even the Empire's retreat sent a clear message. They had underestimated humans in ways they could never fully recover from. Arrogance and reliance on sheer force had met their match in human adaptability, intelligence, and the unexpected power of myths realized. It was a lesson the galaxy would remember, and one humans would carry forward with humility, pride, and the knowledge that unity and creativity could overcome even the most insurmountable odds. As the fleet regrouped and Earth celebrated survival, there was an unspoken understanding among all who had fought. This was only the beginning. The universe was vast, filled with unknowns, but humans had proven that no matter how daunting the challenge, courage, ingenuity, and the lessons of myths could guide them through. And as stars stretched into the distance, every human on the fleet felt the truth in their hearts. Legends are feared for a reason, and humanity had finally lived up to them.